The government's budget decision to lift Australia's retirement age to 67 by the year 2023 marks the beginning of some profound changes to the nation's retirement policies. Faced with an ageing population, the government says the only way the age pension can be adequately funded into the future is if people stay and work longer. It's a logic that's hard to argue given the basic facts and figures, except for one major problem. Raising the retirement age will achieve little unless a practical solution is found to a much more immediate problem, rampant ageism in the workplace. Experts in the field say many workers already battle to find or keep their jobs in the last 2 decades before retirement age. Deborah Cornwall reports.
It's a bit like dating. People always want to stay 39. And in jobs, it's the same. It starts at 40, it gets worse at 45 and worse at 50.
In the working world, 40, it seems, is the new 50. And by the time we do reach the half-century mark, there's little chance you'll ever find a new job in your chosen profession.
There's a number of reasons. With women, it's as basic as they remind younger managers of their mothers. With men, it's a belief that they won't learn, that they'll be hard to manage, which is simply untrue. It's ignorance. We're humiliating a whole generation of our most highly skilled and highly professional people.
The Rudd government's recent move to lift the retirement age to 67 has been widely sold as inevitable, given the demographic time bomb of an ageing population. By 2050, 1 in 4 Australians will be 65 or older, compared to 1 in 8 now. And the government says it has to pay for the pension somehow.
In 1986, a man going on the pension at the qualifying age of 65, on average, would receive the pension for 15 years. By 2010, this will reach around 21 years. But even in 2023, when the qualifying age reaches 67, with improved life expectancy, it's expected the time spent on the pension will be 22 years.
But labour market observers say while most people accept the idea that all of us will have to work longer, the government has yet to deal with the much more immediate challenge of just how that might work, when older Australians are already struggling to keep their jobs in the last 2 decades of their working life.
If you get to 50 or 55 and you lose a job that you've been in for a long time, it's very hard to get back into the workforce. And there are a lot of indignities of people trying to go through training, trying to reskill, maybe picking up little part-time jobs. And essentially what this government's going to say is that you're going to be forced through those indignities for at least another 2 years.
How's it going?
Not too bad, Mick, not too bad.
Painters Mick Price and Kevin Hornhart are still in their 50s. But after 30 years, the job has left its mark.
In the last 6 months, it's been ongoing. There's been one thing after another. A knee, an arm, a foot, medication. 10 years ago, I would have bounced back.
I don't get out of bed as early as I used to. Well, I do, but I don't get out with the same vigour as I used to.
Making it to 67 is a daunting prospect.
You do think about each job as they come to you. Can we do this? Can we manage this job? Because the body is letting you down by increments every year.
But it's not just workers in the trades who are unlikely to make it to the new retirement age. In the recruitment industry, highly skilled professionals are largely regarded as all washed up once they hit 50.
Very often people have said that you don't fit the culture or you don't match the work environment. And when they don't say more than that, but the only conclusion you can come to is that you'll be the old bugger on the shift.
At 57, HR executive John Horan has applied for more than 200 jobs in the past 7 months.
So I've had 2 telephone interviews, 1 face-to-face interview and a number of rejection letters, but more often than not, silence has been the response.
In their model, team will be in there, but in ours, it'll be in the appendix.
Professional recruiter Toby Marshall says John Horan's story is depressingly familiar. Anti-discrimination laws, he says, have only added to the misery for older workers, forcing them to go through a distressing charade of applying for jobs but never making the shortlist.
We've got people who were earning $200,000 a year who are now working in Video Easy. They've got to feed their families. it is a tragedy. Others try to buy themselves a job, so they'll go in and put all their superannuation, hard-earned superannuation, into a news agency, a pub, or some form of franchise. That is a disaster for most of them.
Create a degree of uncertainty which will...
National Seniors Australia is the country's most powerful lobby group for the over 50s.
National Seniors believes that the budget has awakened the nation's consciousness to the bigger picture of what lies ahead in coping with the ageing population.
The group supports a later retirement age, but it's also using its considerable clout to press for a better deal for older workers. In a landmark report released last week, it points to the fact there are already more than 2 million Australians over 55 who are willing to work, but employers don't want them. And it's costing the country close to $11 billion a year in lost productivity. But ageism isn't the only challenge to our retirement policy. Superannuation took a big hit in the global financial crisis, and there's now a growing unease among economists we've all been conned into believing the only way to fund our retirement is by working harder and longer. And if we don't have enough money to scrape up for super at the end of it all, we've only ourselves to blame.
Economic debate in Australia has had this huge moral element, so that people that don't retire as self-funded are almost considered to be failures who have to be propped up as almost poor people. And this is a terrible way to bring dignity to retirement.
Despite some recent reforms to tax concessions, the super system still overwhelmingly favours the wealthy. Over the next decade, the retirement age may ultimately stretch up to 70. But policy commentators say until governments make some hard decisions about superannuation reform, no matter what the retirement age, most people simply won't have enough super to fund their own retirement.
The age pension currently costs about $27 billion a year, and we're handing to high income earners tax concessions in the super system around about $27 billion a year. So if the government was serious, you would have seen them attack that.
Shaping work and retirement policies to serve the future will require some profound attitude changes in our work culture. A challenge not just for governments, but the whole community.
We really need to start casting some light on this issue, start talking about it and not just ignoring it and doing things like raising retirement ages without addressing the real problems.
I want to get into a job and I want to contribute, and I'll do that for another 10 years or longer.
Deborah Cornwall with that report. The new Minister for Superannuation